I'm Sarah Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Hello, friends. Welcome back to The Mothers. In my world of the East Coast, Greater Boston area, public schools, spring break is next week. I know many of you listening have had a chance to enjoy the wonder that is a week without the kids in school, in which you are also either working or have aspirationally gone on not a vacation, but a trip. Very ambitious. I see you. You deserve another chance. I'm going to be taking next week off. Hooray, trying. So you'll see less of me on social media, thank God, for me and for all of you. I wish there was a vacation or out of office setting, by the way, on the algorithm. Anyone listening, you tech folks, can you work on this? Let us people take time off without being punished for not stroking the algorithm for a few days. Anyways, I'll be off. You'll get a rockstar repeat episode. I won't spoil the surprise of who. But enough about mysteries. Let's get into today's guest. On this show, we talk a lot about what it takes to build something, a career, a reputation, a life that works on paper. We spend a lot less time talking about what it takes to leave it, to look at something you've worked for, sometimes for decades, and ask, is staying actually the riskier move? And especially when you're someone who's been very good at the game, when the world rewards you for it, when you know how to win, it becomes even harder to question whether you want the prize at all. Today's guest, Dr. Christine May, the PhD kind, has lived that arc from the inside. She's a behavioral scientist, former psychology professor, and now founder and consultant working with companies at the intersection of health, product, and behavior change. But what struck me most in this conversation isn't just what she's built. It's how many times she's been willing to walk away from what looked like success. Hers is a brave career, a brave life, one that isn't limited by what's typical or expected. She's moved from academia to, quote, industry, which you will hear about, from stability to uncertainty, from externally defined achievement to something much more personal and much harder to measure. We talk about what it means to be someone who's always been good at the game and then starts to question the game itself, about partnership and what it actually looks like to build a life as a team, including the idea that one person sprints while the other coasts, sometimes, and then you switch. About defining your non-negotiables and having the patience and the conviction to wait for the right things to meet you. And ultimately, how she's redefining what it means to have it all. Not as everything, but as autonomy, competence, and connection. Before we get into it, if you're listening and this show has meant something to you, and my daughter running around behind me, there are 3 small ways you can support us that make a real difference. First, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Second, leave us a 5-star review, if we've earned it, which I hope we have. And third, follow us on dear old Instagram, @TheMothersPod. This is a small but growing business, and those actions genuinely help us keep building. All right, let's get into it. Please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Christine May. Thank you so much for catching this lob of an ask to come join me here. I was, playing around on LinkedIn trying to find interesting people, and I found your background very personally interesting in the pivots that have shown up, and then I was kind of looking into your website and Evolve and the offerings there, and how you're also, you're doing your own consulting as well, but also helping people move from academia to corporate life, and just generally this seeming comfort, although I'm sure it's scary at moments, of not following the typical path, which is empowering and horrifying. And so I'd love to just hear your real experience with that. And then obviously throwing kids into the mix, I'm sure had some wonderful stress. Stress that we're so grateful to carry.
It is very true. Yeah, it's so funny because I grew up as a rule follower. I went to Catholic school. I was not Catholic. I went to Catholic school, you hold the door for people, you do your work, you regurgitate, right? Like this was like the start of
Yeah.
my education. And it really wasn't until I got to high school in, my English classes where I started to think like, oh gosh, this whole like think critically thing came later for me.
Oh.
I became much less like robotic, and it was
Mhm.
such a stretch. It was really a really hard adjustment. But I think really in all of these pivots, it's just gotten to a point where it's riskier for me to stay. And
Yeah.
those risks were different, right? And I think we often think about risks as like an action you go to take, but there's also risks with staying stagnant.
Hmm.
And I think that's like, I've always thought of myself as enjoying being comfortable. And as I've gotten older and with these experiences, it's very clear that I don't like to be comfortable.
Hmm.
When I get comfortable, I'm searching for other things that are going to keep me engaged and curious. And this whole, it's very cliche, but this like lifelong learner, like that
Yeah.
truly is me. When I get to learn cool things that I can apply to like my family or my friends or just something that's of interest to me as I'm sort of navigating life, it's really
Yeah.
easy for me to like dive into those things, and it's fun.
Yes. Yes. So much wisdom in there. I want to go really quickly back to the beginning
Mm.
because are you a masshole like me? Are you from
Oh yeah.
there? Okay,
Yeah.
good. I
I
thought
spent
I kind of got
way
it, but I didn't want to make an assumption.
yeah. I am 1000% a asshole.
And I'm a big believer in birth order really like kind of affecting you for life. Do you have siblings? Where are you
I'm an
sit?
only.
Ah,
Mm,
well, we can
yeah,
unpack this.
sure can. We're
Um,
starting therapy session right
yeah,
now.
exactly. So you're saying early days, rule follower. I don't know, you're
Mhm.
kind of like the oldest daughter plus all sorts of, I'm sure, other things that I can't. For what it's worth, I'm the oldest of two, but my sister is 7+ years younger than me. So I sort of
Mhm.
have experienced the only a little bit, but also have this wonderful sibling, but also felt like a child of mine for a while. Like I don't know.
Mm.
I feel like we could kind of overlap in certain ways. But so Catholic school, rule follower. How did psychology become something that you wanted to pursue?
I was always the kid asking why. And I give my parents credit that whenever they could answer that question, why they did and didn't get annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was just always so fascinated with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think moving from that like teeny tiny Catholic school to going to a boarding prep school, I did not live there, but was a day student and got to see like, I was like, oh my gosh, right? There's so much beyond what I grew up in this tiny town. And I'll be totally honest, I was just curious about psychology.
Yeah.
Um, it didn't fit into my schedule as a high school student. So I was like in AP bio, right? Like all these
Yeah.
other classes, and I didn't have a chance. And so I knew that when I got to college, I wanted to take a psych course, like an intro, psych 101. And um the only way to guarantee that I could take that class my first semester was to declare a major.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, how hard is it to change your major? And like, oh, it's really easy. You fill out a form. I was like, great, I'm a psych major, so I can
Mhm.
take this class.
Yeah.
And then, I never stopped. I think looking back, um, despite my mom's path, like becoming an accountant, she was very psychologically oriented.
Mm.
And so I think having that close relationship with her growing up and seeing how she interacted with people and how she was a friend and like the things that she did.
Mhm.
And as I grew up, realized that like other moms aren't like this. I think it was just really eye-opening and fascinating
Wait,
to
what
like
are other moms
understand
like?
that. I don't know, okay, so this is awful because I'm doing this with my kids and I'm trying to like work it back. But like
Yeah.
this Catholic school, right?
Yeah.
There is the extended day program, right?
Mhm.
That like a tiny portion of kids went to. In my head, I never said this out loud. I was like, oh man, those parents, like, they don't love their kids as much as my
Mm.
parents love me. Like
Mm.
that was my running thought process. This will
Yeah.
come up later, I'm sure, in our
Yeah.
conversation. Um, but I think like she was just so involved. She was always volunteering, right? Like she was in the
Mhm.
school, she was involved, and like not other parents were that way. And I
Mm.
think even as an adult, she still is connecting with my friends and wants to have people around and like
Mm.
loves just sort of like being that person. Now I'm not a hostess by any
Mhm.
means. But I think, yeah, she just had this wonderful way about her that when I would go to friends' houses, like moms weren't that way. Not that it was bad. It was just really different.
Yeah. Was your dad in any way? How did he complement this?
Yeah. So my my parents struggled with fertility.
Mm.
So if they could have had more kids, they would have.
Mhm.
They had given up.
Mhm.
And then my mom, found out she was pregnant. And so this whole discussion happened with them. My mom was like, I need to stay home with this baby, right? Like this has been an almost decade-long process. Like I need to be with this
Yeah.
baby. And so they had sort of decided with themselves that my mom was going to stay home. She ended up working very part-time once I was like 2. She needed a little something.
Mhm.
And my dad was going to be the breadwinner. He was going to work. He was going to do all the things.
Yeah.
And, but my dad always coached my teams and he never missed any activity, like whether it was a sporting game or a chorus performance, like he was always there. I never felt like he wasn't there.
Mhm.
He just wasn't the default parent. My mom
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So seemingly wonderful, borderline perfect childhood. Always looking for why. I'm sure it wasn't.
Yep.
Wondering, always being curious. That led you into psychology, where you found a way to like fit this in outside of typical course load. And then what I was curious about is you said you're someone who, like the risks of staying, you're kind of always looking for the next thing or curious about what's next. To choose an academic route to do master's, PhD, all these things, that's like a long haul. Curious how someone who's maybe always curious about what else is out there maybe can also get to a place where they can commit to something like that for a long period of time.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into, frankly. Like, I will be totally honest. I, got to junior year of undergrad and was like, okay, I knew enough that I wasn't a 9 to 5 person. I had done a couple of internships, in the summer that was more 9 to 5. And I was like, I am not cut out for this. What does that then mean? And so I had thought about medical school, doing like a post-bac program, going that route. And another was, a clinical psych PhD. And I went to a research conference with my undergrad advisor, and that solidified it for me. I got to walk around these posters that people created and ask them about the work that they did. What was the research question, right? What questions did they ask and how did they answer it? And I was like, this is what I like. And so yeah, I had planned to take some time off in between undergrad and grad school. I joke that it's just so happened to work out. I applied to 2 schools, got into one, and it was in an area of the country where my now husband's family was from. And so it just, the stars aligned in that way. And I think for me, I really liked school. I liked learning new things. I liked figuring out how pieces fit together. And so graduate school made sense, right? I could deepen my knowledge in an area that I felt passionate about. And it was a long road. I also, in grad school, did not take the typical path. So I started as a clinical psych PhD. I had one advisor for my first year. I switched to another advisor, which is like, you don't talk about this, right? Like that's like, you almost have a scarlet letter if you do that. Like why couldn't
did
you
you
make
do
it work? My advisor at the time had gotten tenure and was like not really cranking in the way that I was expecting. And I could see the future that like I was not going to hit my milestones on time. And if I wanted to make my way
You're
through,
so ambitious. Good for you.
Keep going.
Yes.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yeah.
So I switched to another advisor and went through that year. He was also like notorious for being really tough. Just a really, really tough advisor. And I remember going into my meetings with him with like pit in my stomach, like, again, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so then I even switched tracks. So I went from a clinical psych PhD track to experimental psych PhD track. Again, I had advisors say, like, why would you do that? Like these programs are harder to get into than medical school. Now you're going into an easy to get into program. But I was like, but I get to do the research that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I was finding my way, I think, through graduate school and realizing, gosh, I can actually do research in health and wellness, like things that I love, right? I knew I didn't want to be a personal trainer, but like, oh, wow, I can go deep, right? In behavior change or understanding why people maybe overeat or don't exercise, right?
Yeah.
And
Did
so
you
that
ever
was
at
like,
that point think about like to what end were you starting to make sort of this connection a little bit between research and business opportunities, or was it not, was it just purely answered like I just want to answer the question, you know what I mean?
yeah, at this point, it was really answer the question.
Yeah.
It was sort of like very much in the back of my mind that like, okay, maybe I don't go an academic route. And that was probably more like, what if I can't? What if
Mm.
I can't get an academic job? Because that's
Mhm.
a very real reality, even more so now than
Yeah.
then. But and like, do I want to live in like the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin? Like probably not, right? Like to what
Mhm.
extent am I going to let geographic location limit opportunities?
Mhm.
And it wasn't until after my PhD I did a postdoc, so a couple more years of training. It was in research. It was in much more applied like behavioral science and behavior change. We were adapting like these interventions that we know work in person, and how do we deliver them on Facebook and Twitter.
Mm.
And so it was much more like real world applied.
Yeah.
And I met one person who had gone into industry. Like it's like this big crossing over moment.
Is that what it's
But
called? Gone into industry?
yes,
Like,
going
ah,
into industry, right? You
yeah.
transition, right? It's like a transition, or
Wow.
like truly it is like people are letting go of these years and years of expectation that they were going to be a professor.
Mm.
Um, and so she had started her own company, and I was like, okay, cool. That is not what I'm going to do. So I don't know. I'm just going to keep going in academia and like
Yeah.
see what happens. So I got, one of the coveted tenure track positions that, you're supposed to kiss the feet of the people that hire you. And it really was lovely. It was perfect for having my second child. I got to bring her into work with me. I had a whole setup. Our admin would hold
Yeah.
her while I would have meetings. I was breastfeeding with students in the room. Like nobody batted an eye, right, at any
Wow.
of this. And it was a stark contrast to my first child.
Mhm.
And I vowed to never do that again.
Yeah.
And
Wait, tell me
so,
what
yeah.
happened with the first. We
Oh
haven't even
boy.
get into the layers of when you started
Yeah.
having kids. I assume, did you meet your husband as part of the program or just geographically he was there?
We met in undergrad
Okay.
about a month before he graduated.
Mm.
Tiny school. So like we should have met and we had
Yeah.
all these mutual friends, but we didn't until,
Mhm.
I like to say, until he grew up a little bit. But it was all about timing.
Nice.
Yeah. So we were distance for a couple of years, kind of
Mhm.
navigating work and school and all of that. In the middle of me going, for my PhD, he decided to go for a master's degree and do a career change as well. So
Got it.
that was
Wow.
really fun.
Cool.
It
Yeah.
was a wild
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. No stability needed. That's awesome. Wow.
No, it was fine. We were like really poor to the point where I was like, should we look into food stamps?
Mm.
And we did. And
Mhm.
we were told that we had too many assets because I had like a 15-year-old car. I was
Oh,
like
wow.
expected to sell that car to like eat. Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
Crazy. Yeah.
yeah. Do you look back on
So
that time as like any? I was thinking about this actually with my husband today or over the weekend, where we're both in entrepreneurial places, which is sometimes wonderful. Also, really, as you know, like carries a lot of anxiety and weight or
mhm.
whatever. But also getting the sense of people on the other side, like 20, 30 years from now, often look back at this time, like the grinding with your team kind of stuff and being like, I kind of miss that. Like once you're kind of in this place of stability, do you look back on it now with, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't want to go back to that, but you, in a way that you're sort of grateful that it happened?
Yeah. I mean, it was our foundation. I'm also grateful that we were distanced for the beginning
Mm.
part of our relationship, right? Like we just got to know each other so well, so quickly.
Mhm.
And I think I didn't view it as struggling.
Mhm.
I think honestly, like raising kids, I think has been more of a struggle.
Mhm.
It was simple. Everything was
Mm.
simple back then. It was like we're cooking everything at home. Like what's on sale this week at the grocery store?
Yeah.
Um, how often can you ride your bike up the big giant hill to your grad school classes versus use car gas? Like these were
Yeah.
the things that we calculated, but
Yeah.
we had a shared goal, right? And to build together, I think I'm so grateful because everything we have is ours. It was never yours or mine. And that we were athletes, and so we've always been a team. And sometimes you have to pick your teammate up. Sometimes they need a kick in the butt, right?
Yeah.
But I think that has always been a through line for us and in our relationship and how we've navigated.
Yeah, building together is so good. My husband and I are both athletes. It feels wrong to say former athletes. You're always an athlete, right?
Right? I pretend like I still am. I go to these boot camp classes and like, we're all like, what are we trying to prove? We're like, middle-aged women. What are we doing?
I just want to move laterally without breaking a joint.
Right, exactly.
But sorry, I keep cutting you off. So, okay, so you meet your teammate for life, and then eventually you have your first kid. And where are you along your academic path?
I was in postdoc, which is a relatively common, I think, like place to have kids. It's rare that folks will have kids in grad school, like in a PhD program. It happens. There were a couple of people in my program that did. We were also relatively young. We were just kind of on the fast track. And so I was like, let me just get through school, buy a house after when we both actually have salary jobs.
Yeah.
And kind of starting out. And so, yeah, ended up, we also didn't know what fertility would look like for us. Just knowing that on our different sides of the family, there were struggles. And so it was kind of like, well, we don't really want to wait too long. But yeah, we were lucky where we didn't struggle. And so I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, I announced, that I was pregnant to one of the people that I was working with or for, I should say. And she asked me if it was planned. That was her first question.
Oh, man.
And I was like, yes. Right. Like I am nervous, right? New mom, newish job, trying to get my footing. So I was like, I mean, yes. And in retrospect, I'm like, does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it matter
True.
if this is planned or not?
True.
No, the reality is I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby.
Very true. Did that person have kids also or no kids?
Non-biologically.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's this feeling in academia. This was at an academic medical center too. So like things are grinding and it's like you are just supposed to be working 24/7. Like there are no boundaries. Like you give everything to your job and your work.
Wow.
But
you don't get paid. I mean, that's crazy. Wow. To get the professor job at the big university, to write the big paper, write the big book. That's so interesting. Okay. Keep going.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah. So,
I shouldn't say not that you're not getting paid, but I get this sort of grind culture in like stupid investment banking where it's like, okay, I'll like work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, but like they'll pay me something dumb.
But see, this is also, I mean, for me, it was like a female dominated area where like, this is your vocation, right? Like it's that layer of like,
oh, it's meaning. And
yes.
But weaponized.
Yes. So it's just multifaceted, right?
Yeah.
And that they're called soft money funded positions, which means in order for you to get paid, you have to get grants. You need to get grants awarded from the federal government. So it's a whole process. Very stressful. It was not my kind of stress. I knew that I didn't want to write grants. I didn't want to be in a soft money funded position. Just I'm cool to like push the envelope and work hard, but not when I'm sort of relinquishing control, right? I want to have some autonomy in that process. So I had my first daughter and she ended up having to be C-section, which was, I had a terrible, horrible recovery, like physically. It was just really hard. And I was getting to the time, right, of like needing to get back to work. And she was having a really hard time taking bottles. And so, I'm communicating this and the person I was working for, if anybody's psychologically minded, is a behaviorist through and through, meaning I need to shape my daughter's behavior, right? So it's on me to shape my daughter's behavior to take bottles, right? So this is a two-ish month, right? It's my two-ish month old baby. In this process, she went 12 hours without eating, right? We're all moms here. We know how often 2-month-old babies eat, right? Like that I was trying to get her to take a bottle. Like I left the house, did the whole thing so she couldn't smell me, right? It was not happening. And so I got a couple extra weeks at home, like working from home.
Mm-hmm.
Still struggling, getting a little bit better, but I was told to call her pediatrician to see how long babies could safely go without eating, meaning I need to be in the office typing away at my computer, which I could be doing at home.
What?
That was the solution. I remember vividly standing in a hallway, like shaking on the phone. And I called her pediatrician, and the pediatrician was like, that's a really bad question. You need to work less. Like,
God.
And I was like, I cannot work less. And so I ended up going on medical leave after my maternity leave because I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, like lots of postpartum depression, anxiety, probably sort of had natural inclination for it. And I ended up not returning to that job.
I'm glad. I'm well, for figuring out. That's so fucked up. Like, this is what they do. And in that setting, it's the least supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still that way? Have they gotten better?
I don't know. I think there's like this, I went through it, and so now you have to go through it. So that was one thing. I actually had 3 people when I went to work at Noom go out on maternity leave on my team. And I vowed to not be anything like what I experienced. I saw 2 polar ends of the spectrum. And now there's wonderful resources that are like parentally, right? There's other resources now out there to help managers with their team, you know, with women going out on leave, but like that, those things don't exist in academia.
Good for you for what you just said of like, I vowed to not do that to other women. Because I do think there is, and I blame my sort of athlete background a little bit. Hazing is sort of part of it, like sort of earn your stripes, so to speak. And like, it was hard for me. Like, you can deal with it when it's hard for you, which is not healthy and not productive and doesn't get us to a better place. But I think, thank you for like creating generational change in the workplace. Because I think a lot of people don't, on some way, they don't trust it. And we wear that as a badge of honor that it was so hard and we survived. And it's like, imagine how much better we could do if it wasn't so hard. Wow. Okay. So you leave that place. Good job. How did you manage to get yourself, you're on like medical leave, dealing with so many things. You also are now going to have to like line up a new job. That's a lot. How did you get through that?
It was insane. So I had met a friend who was also a postdoc at the same time as me, and she is now my business partner with Evolve.
Oh, cool.
So that also came full circle for me. And I was like, hey, I'm going on the academic job market, which is no small feat. It is a multi-day process of like interviews. You have to give a job talk to talk about all your research. You have to field questions, right? You have to write a 2-page research statement, a 2-page teaching statement, your CV, which is 15 pages, right? It's like, it is such a slog. So she was my person to go to practice. I knew I needed to practice this job talk, right? Like do all the things. And I had networked prior and saw a job open with somebody that I had connected with. And that I ended up landing that job. So I was only out of work, I don't know, 4 months.
Wow.
The timing sort of
6 months old, 5 months old.
Yeah. We had to go to South Carolina for one of the job talks. Like we were all over the place. And
you're such a hero. Good for you. I'm sorry that you had to.
There's times I'm like, gosh, I wish I had just like taken a beat, but I'm just not programmed that way. And it's sort of like come hell or high water, I'm going to make something work. And I don't know, push. Things always work out the way they need to, whether you see it at the time or not. And I think that like the more experiences that happen, the more I can be and let be rather than getting anxious and trying to grasp at whatever control I can.
Yeah. So I want to hear about what it took to, what was it? Transition into industry. And then you had your second was in corporate world or was in academic world?
Academic world. So
you're right.
As a psychology professor. Second baby came along.
Yes. And that was a cushier-ish experience.
Yep, I was very open. It was my psychology department was mostly young parents with young
Mhm.
kids. Like I remember our department chair had like an Easter egg hunt in her house, and there were kids, I mean, just everywhere, all different ages. Like
Huh.
some of them that were in, they had like a preschool or like a daycare affiliated with the
Yeah.
college.
Great.
So it was a child development center. And so a lot of our kids were together and making friends, and it
Oh,
was
that's
just a
great.
beautiful community. And I think because I had such a traumatic return with my first child, I was like,
Yeah.
can I come back half time? Like when I'm
Hmm.
ready, I had to do my maternity leave. Can I come back half time, half pay for the remainder of that academic year? And then I'll be back in sort of full swing. And they were fine with that. And so, yeah, it was just a lovely, lovely
Wow.
experience to have that. I
Yeah.
have remember pictures, like a selfie of me in my office with like a little infant swing, and we had her
Yeah.
little place to take naps and changing station,
Yeah.
and it was just incredible to know that like that did exist. Sort of healed, I think, what I experienced in a
Yeah.
different academic setting.
Which
And
is, do you
so
think, more common? Those are such dramatically different setups or
I
experiences.
like to think that neither one of them are common. That like we're a regression to the mean. We're like
Yeah.
maybe it's somewhere in the middle of those things.
Yeah.
I like to think that we're getting better
Mm.
with how we treat moms, protocols, maternity leave policies, paid family leave policies now, right? Like I wasn't able to take advantage of any of that, but
Yeah.
glad, I'm so grateful that it exists now.
Yeah.
Um, I I like to think it's closer in the direction of my second
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
than first.
Yeah. But you felt the call, felt the pull to move out of academia. I like the language you have on your website actually about like generally it seems like there's a sense of urgency and you're like in a positive way that you carry. And you trusted that. But what kind of I love talking to people who do make these hard pivots and there's a level of courage and conviction that they end up kind of reaching. But I'm curious, like if you can go back to that time psychologically, what was,
Yeah.
how did you get yourself to jump?
So again, had sort of toyed with the idea. I got a bit too comfortable, I think,
Hmm.
where I was. I felt like I was on rinse and repeat sort of every semester. It was mostly the same classes I was teaching. I absolutely adored my students.
Hmm.
I chose that institution because they had small class sizes and it reminded me of my undergrad experience. And so
Hmm.
I really loved that.
Yeah.
But I sort of felt like I feel like there's something more out there
Hmm.
for me, and I don't know what the more is or what
Yeah.
that looks like. And then the big shove was COVID.
Mm.
So my second daughter was 6 months old about at the time when things shut down. And I remember being in the classroom, the kids were going for spring break for the
Hmm.
college students. And they were like, oh, yeah, like they're telling us, it's going to be 2 weeks. Like, you know, Dr. May, like, how much should I pack? And I was like, you know, I would pack as much as you can. I sort of knew
Yeah.
enough about epidemiology that like we were going to be in it
Yeah.
for the long haul. And so
Yeah.
I, again, sort of my gut was right in that I knew I was going to be forced back into the classroom before I was
Hmm.
going to be ready, sort of physically, psychologically, and like what kind of danger I put my family into
Yeah.
being in a classroom of college students.
Yeah.
So there was like that piece, like a real threat to my family's safety,
Mm.
um, coupled with, I'm not really using my research brain as much as I really would have liked. I
Yeah.
went to a more teaching focused college. And so I was like, is there some way that I can work from home and, exercise that research brain that I
Yeah.
have trained? And I Googled academic research and industry. Like, because I was like, I don't even know what to search. I don't know where to find jobs. And I hear this from academics and clinicians all the time. Like, where do I even look? Right. In
Yeah.
academia, there's like one or two academic job boards that you go
Hmm.
to and you can find
Wow.
jobs, right? It's very like
Wow.
linear and
Yeah.
controlled, but not when you're going out into the big bad world of industry, whether
Yeah.
it's nonprofits, whether it's startups, big companies, anything in between, it
Yeah.
doesn't exist. And
Wow.
so
What a missed
I came
opportunity.
across I know it really is. I'm like, I think there's some folks I think now that are starting to craft some of these like job board type opportunities, but a lot of it I think is even manual. Like I'm just going to find a bunch of jobs and put them in Slack groups that have a lot of academics or clinicians in them. Like it's not pretty. There's biases against a lot of academics in industry too. So there's like that layer.
I need to write a paper about this. I'm sure it's been
yeah. Yeah. So I came across a job at Noom, and they were already far in the search for that particular job, but they had these other jobs coming up. One was the job I ended up taking. It was called Academic Partnership Manager. I've never seen that title anywhere else ever since that job title. And they wanted me in New York, and I said, I can't. Like, we're not New York City people. Like, it's not going to work. So I was like, keep me posted on future jobs. And then they came back a couple months later and said, we can't find anybody locally that we love. Would you do it remote? And I was like, check, we're here. All right. So it's like, I tell that story because I think it's so important that people, and moms in particular, figure out what their non-negotiables are. I have a very short list of non-negotiables, but that's a list. And sometimes if you stick to your guns, right, things do work out in the way that you need them to for your life. So started that job, and boy, I felt like Bambi when I walked in, right? Like when we were allowed to go into the office, right? But like I got about 6 months in and was like, holy cow, there are so many opportunities for people with my skill set in industry, right? Whatever this industry thing is. And it's not that big of a gap between what you've been trained to do. It's just how you package it and apply it, to this new setting. And so I just like loved it. I loved the strategy behind why should we publish another paper? What paper should we publish? How is that going to help the business? And so I grew up with two of my uncles own like a gravel and concrete business that was like my great grandfather's, right? So like this is what I grew up around. And so I was like, oh, all of this is now making sense. Like it's my world that I grew up in. Fast forward to like my academic training world where like nobody in my family has gotten a PhD, MD, right? Like a couple master's degrees, but like this was the first, one to kind of go off and do this. Now I get to bring this all together and see like the puzzle pieces are all now starting to fit together.
I love when those moments happen.
Oh, the best.
Totally.
It really is.
I know. It all makes sense finally. And then it gets lost again, but it lasts for a little while.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So then Noom, and you still have these two young kids. Incredible. I wanted, let's get to where you've since kind of moved into working for yourself, launching your own business, consulting, advisory. And was that also a similar, I was getting a little too comfortable and I wanted to try something new, or wanted to work for myself? I personally have found post kids and post kind of getting out of the little just survival mode of kids, a craving of like wanting to do something that's my own, because everything about my life is about everybody else. I'm like, I want this to be mine. But I'm curious, like what, I don't know, what kind of contributed to what the moves that you've made since and evolve?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of pieces. I think that played in. Some of it was like a level of comfortability. Some of it was I really wanted to build some infrastructure, and I was able to build that. And then I was like, okay, well then what's next? And I found myself in a design sprint, and I got to work with some incredible designers on sort of a new product vertical. And I was like, this is cool. There's no roadmap for how we should do this. I have these incredibly talented designers building these beautiful looking things. They're taking my inputs from like, what's the evidence base telling us about how we should think about, weight loss maintenance or GLP-1s, right? Like all of these pieces. And again, seeing them come together, that I was like, I really love this building process.
Yeah.
And I knew I wouldn't get a lot of opportunity to do the building. I'd sort of built the team, built some infrastructure in terms of like working with product and I joke that I was like, we're going to infiltrate product. We would like have these like pep talk meetings about like, we didn't have these inroads built yet. And I was like, all right, we're going to do it. And things happened more high level, right? I saw a lot of female leaders like in the C-suite leaving after being there only for a short time. And so I kind of was like, what am I goaling on here?
Yeah.
Like, sure, I could keep doing this, but there just were a lot of pieces that I felt like I kind of think it's time to close the chapter, which was really hard because my team was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal workers, phenomenal people. We genuinely enjoyed spending time together. We were all so different. It was amazing. And that's what kept me there, I think, as long as I was there. And I remember having, conversations with my husband that I was like, I don't think I want to go to an early stage startup and like put all of my eggs in that basket and grind and grind and grind like I've already been doing. I was really burnt out.
Yeah.
And he just kind of said, well, like, just bet on yourself. Like, you've never let you down, and
what
that has, right now, he like truly all along has said, I want you to do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easier said than done. But so I was like, all right, we're going to just try consulting. I don't even really know what this thing is. I did not plan for it. I say that. I financially planned for it. That was the only thing that I could do. I was like, all right, I'm going to give myself runway. I'm going to give myself a year. But I couldn't like think about taking on extra work or extra clients. So I was kind of flying blind. And I was like, we're going to do a year-long experiment. Let's see how it goes, how I feel, what the work looks like, what does our revenue look like? And I think by and large, it was a success by lots of different metrics. But I think switching from a lot of those financial metrics to like personal metrics that don't get like the flashy recognition, that I was just a happier person. I started working out regularly again. Like I just felt like I was finding myself again after having these kids, after having a really demanding career. So it allowed me, I think, some space to do that and like work with some really cool companies. And I think I am just a systems thinker, so I can take what I learned from like a fintech who's focused on financial wellness and apply those learnings to like a women's sexual wellness company, right? And like see how all of those pieces fit together. So what I learned from one client, I can apply to the next. And so I think it just exponentially increased the speed with which I was able to learn more about the industry and what it takes to be a business owner, working with a lot of founders. And the founder identity came a bit later. But like I am a founder. I have to run my business. And so I can now relate, right, to other types of founders who maybe have a specific product that they're selling.
Yeah. I would say just hearing your story from the beginning, I was like, oh, there's such an entrepreneurial energy here. Like very make more out of what's in front of you, connecting dots very quickly and like eager to build and move. And it's really, I'm so glad that you're betting on yourself. I was curious, you said thinking about different metrics. I feel like it's very buzzy now to talk about ambition and all these things. And I think especially, it has to be true for everybody, but as a woman and a mother, I feel like that it's interesting, the metrics and an achiever and all the things. An athlete, I think also drives this, is I want to be the best, which sounds lame. And I don't really care about that relative to others. It's sort of, I feel better in that position. But some of that is with age, with parenthood, with X, Y, and Z comes this moment, as you're saying. I've talked to so many people about this, like shifting from kind of rethinking what I actually want or what matters. And you said, I think something about like shifting to different metrics. Essentially, what are we optimizing for now? Was that a slow moment? How did you feel shifting to that other, I'm optimizing for things that are a little different than like, I don't know, resume cachet? I don't know what we were talking about, but I could imagine. How do you feel doing that now? How did you walk through feeling, I don't know, it's cool to show up with a nice brand behind you, but it's also cool to run your own business and maybe consult for those cool brands. Walk me through how you feel good enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not comfortable. I think
Mhm.
being an achiever, right? Like, and but what I've come to realize is just our society systematically devalues traditional women's work, right?
Mhm.
And so I think I have had to sort of uncover like what does that mean for me, and um you know, and with the dawn and like resurgence of the trad wives movement,
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah.
I am not that. So,
Yeah.
but what does it mean if I pick up my kids from school every day? What does it mean if I'm sacrificing work time to go to all of their activities, right?
Mhm.
Am I getting closer to that like conservative trad wife who has to be
Yes.
taken care of, right?
Mhm.
So I've had to fight with myself
Mhm. Yeah.
um about that, but I have seen what it does for my household and my family.
Mhm.
There's probably not surprisingly a lot of neurodivergence circulating in
Mm.
my house,
Mhm.
all four of us. And so, like, trying to manage that in the best way that I can, and um, learning through my kids. I think
Mm.
that's been one of the biggest surprises. I felt like as a parent, right, you have to teach your kids all these things, but
Mhm.
I've probably learned a lot more about myself, about my work from my
Mhm.
children,
Yeah.
just by nature of being a parent. But it's unlearning a lot of what you've been told. And I think
Mm.
this sort of a core question for me is always like, am I good enough? Right.
Yeah.
In whatever domain, and this expectation on myself that I'm
Mhm.
supposed to do everything um to my absolute best to like kind of be a martyr. And
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But it's really hard day to day, I think, to kind of s- tone those voices down.
Mhm.
Because you can't do everything well. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. I remember my
Mhm.
dad sitting me down. It was like middle school, maybe.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah.
like, Christine, there's going to come a time where it's you can't do it perfectly. Like it's just going to have to be good enough. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, dad, sure, whatever you say. Right. And I'm like, what is my MVP day? Right. Like, what is
Yeah.
my minimum viable product of a day?
Yeah.
What are the things I have to get done?
Yeah.
And letting some of the other things go, or finding help for those things.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's another layer, I think, of challenge of what is the right help. Like, do I hire an ADHD parent coach? Like, is
Yeah.
that the right help? Is it me being, in the field enough to be dangerous that I think I can implement some things on my own?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
it's hard to sort of navigate those parts.
Yeah, for sure. What does your like support network look like for holding your family together? Beyond you, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thankfully it's beyond me. I
Mhm.
think again, here's where my teammate, my husband comes in,
Mhm.
where when my career has spiked, he has been in positions where he's coasting. And so
Mm.
we sort of take turns
Yeah.
sprinting and coasting. And so I think that has worked well so far. Um, who knows what the future will bring? I think there's some added sort of challenges here, but there are times, when I was at Noom, he was the default parent. When I
Mhm.
was in academia, I was the default parent. So we have switched off a lot.
Mhm.
And there are some things where I'm like, okay, I really hate doing dishes. Like that is primarily his job. Does he do it all the time? Nope.
Yeah.
Like laundry is also primarily my job. Do I do it all the time? Nope. We kind of pick up the pieces right when the other person is maybe a little bit overloaded, and
Yeah.
it's hard because it's a constant communication and a constant negotiation.
Mhm.
um but I tend to rebel against really rigid structure.
Mm.
Back again,
Mhm.
back to where I
Yeah.
started, right? I don't want to go back to that. I don't
Yeah.
want this rigid structure, so I would rather live in a little bit more chaos to have the ebbs and the flows of like allowing myself to sprint and return. One piece of advice that I did get in academia, they're like, as soon as you can, hire somebody to clean your house.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
is something that there is no better feeling than walking back into your house and it being clean and you've done nothing to
Mhm.
make it that way. Other than, you got to pick up before the cleaners come. That's like our
Yes.
family routine.
Okay, I
Um,
don't do that. I hope maybe a
ugh.
house cleaner is gonna listen to this. I'm sorry. Valeria is amazing. Truly amazing. Because my parents, specifically my mom, would always clean up before the cleaner came. And I was, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I'm kind of like, what happens if I don't? Like, maybe we don't need to. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's
don't
something to
try
be
not
said for
doing
that.
it. See
Yeah,
what happens.
I know. But I think because much of my work is inherently delay of gratification, right? What it takes to run a study from end to end and publish it and have somebody read it, it's a long road.
Yeah.
Thankfully, in some of the product work, it's a little bit quicker. But I remember people saying in academia, you better find a hobby that are like, you've got quick hits of dopamine, because everything else is delay of gratification.
Yeah.
And so there's something, when the time is right and the mood is right, if I can tackle a little house project, like I just cleaned out our craft closet. God, that was a disaster. But I was like, I ordered like shelving, right, to put like, so it's in process. And I was like, oh, that felt so good to do. Yeah. So there are like those pieces sometimes where I'm like,
totally,
it's more satisfying.
Totally.
I still write things down by hand so I can cross it off.
Yes. Yes. I keep thinking about what you said about the coasting versus sprinting, or coasting versus grinding. When the trading off between you and your husband, which I think is beautiful, and I encourage everyone to think about it that way. If you have that kind of control, is that it's hard for everyone to be really on in the household, and like, what's the balance in the home? I actually think about this with this was useful life advice around sleep training, which we definitely did. And one of the most useful nuggets as to get me to just do it and not feel any guilt about it was, and we did the cry it out, etc., was like, it's not about the baby. It's like, how's the overall home? Like, how's the family? How's everyone doing? And if this kid not sleeping at night is like ruining everyone else's life, like, that's not okay. And I think similarly about like kind of managing the energy, managing the output, managing the effort across like the whole family unit, the team, is really smart. And it also sounds like you've done a really good job of finding a partner, which I've often said, like, one of the most important things I think as a woman in particular you can do is to marry the right if you're going to marry, have to get married, but if you're going to partner up, like, find the right partner. Because there's way too much to do it alone. There's no society that's going to help you other than this other person that you're like in the foxhole with. And that's so key. So I'm so glad. Sounds wonderful. I hope it's as wonderful as it sounds. But congratulations to you both. Do you have aspirations of like, I don't even know if are you in a sprint phase now? Do you think of this as like, have a thought of like, am I sprinting enough? Am I going to coast? How does that, do you think ahead to that? Or are we going day to day?
Yeah, well, it ebbs and flows with like client load. So I am in a sprint right now. I took on a big client starting the beginning of the year and knew it was going to eat up a lot of my time. And so I definitely feel like I'm sprinting more, where I'm like, okay, hey, like, husband, when you're going into the office, like, I need you home by this time so I can have some like, later afternoon meetings. And he's like, okay, great. Like, whatever you need, right, to like make it happen. And so I think those are the times where we do sit down and have conversations about, okay, how much am I going to have to ramp up, or how much is he going to have to ramp up? And sometimes it's like a couple of weeks. He's an accountant, so like his sprints are more predictable, but he's also a private equity owned company. And so there's always buying and selling happening that could just really throw a spanner in the works. So I think it is just like we probably over communicate, and like sometimes it can get annoying, but I'm like, that is what's keeping the ship running. And like, I'm in a sprint and I'm like, okay, hey, we're eating crap for dinner. Like, let's get back on the like ordering food for ourselves train, right? Like, we need to have some like meal delivery thing come in here. So I think when those, spikes, when they are predictable, are coming and happening, we need to like put on some more training wheels, right? Like, maybe the wheels were off and we're kind of like flying free, and now we're like, okay, now we need to buckle down and put more systems in place. And so some of that is, one day a week my kids are at extended day, which they love, by the way, and beg to go to extended day. So, they're in that one day a week. We've got grandparents. My parents, thankfully, are geographically close to us. And so they'll
Mm,
pick them up from school and spend an afternoon with them one day.
mhm.
And we have a wonderful neighbor that we do carpooling with. So like when I know these things are coming on, I'm like, okay, we got to put the things in place that will keep the ship running.
Yeah.
Um, and
That's
it's
great.
usually too late. Because I'm like, I've been working through this too. Where I'm like, well, I could just do meal delivery all the time because I
Yeah.
really don't like, it's not that I don't like cooking. I hate cleaning up. It's the
Mhm.
cleaning up process that drives me insane
Yeah.
when I'm tired and I have nothing left at that
Yes.
point in the day. And so like, couldn't I just do that all the time? Why do I have
Yeah.
to give myself permission, right? When I'm
Yeah.
busy or bringing in more revenue to say, hey, let's bring this on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the next phase of kind of working into like, in order to allow myself to truly coast and recover from the sprints,
Yeah.
I probably still need a lot of those systems in place. And so
Yeah.
that's the next phase where we're going to
Totally.
go
Yeah.
into.
I love a sprint. That's so funny. I also realize I'm a big Robin Arzon Peloton person. I like love her workouts, and I realize that I can't do the other ones. I used to be an Emma Lovewell person, but they're so hard because they're constantly hard. I feel like Robin is an interval training master, like a hit training, and I was like, that's how I actually think of life, or that's how I'm not a run the marathon like forever. I'm like, make it hard and then give me a second to recover. Make it hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's like been healthy, I think, because you can't just
Hmm.
do it all the time at the top.
Mm-mm.
Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of, quick question, having it all, do you what's I think everyone kind of agree like having it all, whatever. But I do like the idea of people defining for themselves what all entails and you mentioned this your non-negotiables list, at least in a job context. I was just curious if you the elements to you that make up it all. Um, do you have those in mind? Do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think having it all is a load of crap.
Yeah.
And I think from what we think about, right? Like women are supposed to work like they don't have kids and parent like they don't work, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
just it doesn't work.
Yeah.
For me, I think about it more from like a psychological perspective, shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm like, do I have autonomy?
Mm.
Yes, no, right? Or like to what extent do I have autonomy? That's important. Um, am I competent at what I'm doing, right? Do I
Mm-hmm.
feel good about what I'm able to achieve, whether it's parenting or work? Great. Um, do I get to work with people and be around people that give me energy and joy, even being an introvert, right? Like,
Yeah.
do I get to work with smart, hardworking people? And like, those are three core pieces to, in my mind, like psychologically having it all.
Yeah.
And so, what are the things that I'm doing in my life that will enhance any one of those three
Yeah.
areas?
Yeah.
And it does ebb and flow. There are some days that I just can't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also the nice part about consulting is you can scale back. I'm hoping and trying for maybe a summer when
Yeah.
my kids are off school and we've got some like camps mixed in here, but like
Mm-hmm.
kind of scale back and have that be a coast period so that I
Mm-hmm.
can sort of sprint in the parenting realm
Yeah.
and scale, but you just can't sprint in both. It just
Yes.
it doesn't work.
Yes. I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been really I love your brain. I think you have such good life perspective and I'm so like impressed by what you've put together. And how brave you are about like doing it on your own and going your own way. Better said, I think. We have these small like closing questions if you can indulge these short answers. It's interesting to see how everyone answers them. But we talked about your first child, the kind of traumatic experiences around it. Is there anything going back to that new mom self that you would say to her?
Ooh. I think it would just be like, don't be afraid to stick up for yourself.
Mm,
Um, I think it's just such a delicate time and you're trying to figure out the world and this new world, right? You've just been
yeah.
given a baby and yeah, I just think it's like to just not be hard on yourself. I think is a really big piece.
Yeah. Anything that would have made, I can think of a couple, that it would have made the process so far of motherhood, parenthood, career management, etc., the experience a little bit easier, or things that you wish that you'd had?
I think just more instrumental help.
Yeah.
Um, I have my people, I have my, girlfriends with their kids and, that you can talk to whenever. But I think just like being okay with accepting and seeking out the help that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can be really small, like having somebody come fold your laundry or do your dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Like just again, try and make it a little easier
Yeah.
on yourself.
Is asking for help or accepting help or both hard for you?
Very.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Even though you
Supposed to
know
be.
specifically what you need help with and you're like, I'm going to offload that. Interesting.
Mhm. Because I make it work, right? And I
Yeah.
think what I'm trying to train myself to do is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah.
And so where your energy is going, are those the things that are bringing joy?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, feelings of accomplishment and the things that light you up.
Yeah.
If not, then it probably needs to go to somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's a good, like, what's the test where it's like, does this bring me joy? The Marie Kondo.
Yes. Exactly. Does it spark joy? Marie Kondoing my life every day.
Totally, totally. All right, last question. My favorite. Your kids might listen to this one day. Is there anything you want to say to them?
Trying to get emotional, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say thank you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I just feel so lucky that these are my children, and I'm so grateful for everything that they've already taught me. And I'm really excited for all the more teachings to come with them.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, lifelong learner. I love also you're talking about learning, and then there's a period you're like kind of I'm unlearning things now,
Mhm.
which is its own way of learning. So thank you for sharing so much of your life with me and our listeners. That's so informative, and I feel like everyone should go check out Evolve. Anyone trying to get out of academia and into industry, I feel like you are the person to talk to. And that should be a burgeoning side of your business. On top of obviously the product and what is it, chief product officer and science officer, scientific officer.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep. Science. Yep.
Um, Clearly I was one of those. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Christine. It was great to get to know you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Wow, Christine, what a cool cat. I mean, I should say Dr. May. V is ambitiously, my favorite word, traveling to the West Coast and unavailable. So you're stuck with me versus some chit chatting. But really quickly, wanted to recap. I feel like things that are sticking with me from this convo, and I love learning from all of these incredible women, but such a brave career, such a brave life. And I really admire that she's not limited by what's quote typical, which it's funny that she started as a rule follower and she clearly, maybe when you know rules so well, you know how meaningful it is to move outside of them. So anyways, I'm glad that she has. But some other things that I would say to V directly if she was here. Um, Partnership and team, the importance of seeing family as a team and this idea of building together. And whether it's within your own individual career or across careers with your partner, the idea of balancing sounding more like sprinting versus coasting. And I know even if we're coasting, nobody coasts. There's no such thing as coasting once you have kids, but helpful if everyone's not sprinting all at once. So that's one thing I want to think about more. I love that she's like, I'm a lifelong learner, but also talking about all the things that she's learning and now the importance of unlearning. I am also a lifelong learner, and the idea of unlearning as a proactive effort. Similarly, she talked about sometimes, you stay at jobs too long or you tolerate things for too long. And the thinking about it as the lack of making a move is also making a move. Similarly, learning exists in both directions. There's learning things and unlearning things. Having your list of non-negotiables, Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. I loved that Noom, she had the example of Noom where originally they weren't open to her working remotely from Boston. Why wouldn't anyone do this? I'm so annoyed by remote limitations, but she stood her ground. And they came back around a couple months later and said, we couldn't find anyone better. You can have the job. And then my last thing, which is like a plea to anyone listening, and also a reminder to myself, the idea of being the change, and how so many of us grew up in a time where it was hard and we had to do it, not literally always, but make it in a man's world. And then we had to deal with, frankly, a lot of female bosses who adopted that model, and kind of, it was a lot of, you need to prove your worth by proving your toughness and proving your resilience and proving how you can hang in awful circumstances. And I love that Christine was like, I just made a point that it was so awful for her. She's like, I will never allow that to happen or be that way towards anyone that might be on my team. So this, like, just because it was hard for you doesn't mean it needs to be so hard for the next generation, is so simple. But people find themselves in these moments and they look back on their unintentionally learned expectations of what it is to like prove that you can hack it as a new parent. What if we were more accommodating and understanding and kind of holding, mothering, frankly, mothering the next generation as they learn how to mother in the workplace, whether in academia, which sounds particularly difficult in certain circumstances, or in corporate America. So anyways, Dr. May, well played. Love another masshole. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. V, you were missed. I'm sure this wasn't as good as dishing with you about whatever reality TV segments might be going on, or things even deeper than that if we can find them. But to all listening, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for being here. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.